Y'all feel free to sing along if you want. I heard a little bit. Y'all are welcome for having that song stuck in your head for the rest of the day now. But yeah, I'm starting off this 3-speaker deal that we're talking about the book of Proverbs, and it's a series called Note to Self. And that song is everyone knows it, but the backstory is what's so fascinating is that Jonathan Cain wrote that, and he was a down and out artist, musician, songwriter, and he couldn't pay his bills. And so he called his dad and said, "Dad, I don't know if I can do this. Maybe I should just move back home to Chicago." And his dad, in his wisdom, said, "Son, I'm gonna give you a loan and don't stop believing." And so that's the backstory behind that song. And so I'm gonna talk about a topic, and there's a reason why I had that as my walkout song. You're gonna hear Latrice's in a little bit. She's gonna speak next, and her song is actually one that she sang. So I'm not gonna have one that I sang, but Latrice is gonna have one that she sang. I don't know about Jason's, but we're talking about 3 different topics today around the book of Proverbs, and I chose the short straw, and I am talking about parenting. So I am very excited, but also a little bit nervous because I've had 25 years of experience, and if you're a parent out there, you know that it is hard to talk about this. It is hard to know what to do, how to do it, how to get it right. So I want to just share some perspectives for us today as our sons are 22 and 25. It's a challenging topic, but my oldest, I was taking him to the airport yesterday, and he's an artist, and was taking him to the airport, and I had him read over my message, and he started crying, and so I don't know what to do with that. If it's good or if it's bad, I think it's good, but I had his permission to share some of the things I'm gonna share today. But having kids is really an amazing journey, to say the least. I remember the miracle of being in the room with both of our sons who were being born at the time, and my wife's sitting right here. And so when you look at me, I am not a small person, okay? I'm 6'5", a little bit over that, and 125 pounds, okay? So, I didn't say a joke yet, so I'm a little bit more than that. But no, whenever I walked into the room, the nurse looked at me, and she saw my shoulders, and she said, "Oh my Lord." And then she saw my wife, and she's like, her eyes got real big. I don't know how something that big is gonna be birthed by this woman over here, but she did it. She's amazing. Both the boys, like me, were over 10 and a half pounds. So big guys in our house, and parenting is just so much, right? I mean, it turns quickly from being indescribable to unmanageable. There's pooping, there's peeing, there's food, there's changing diapers, and that's all within the first hour, right? And you're there at the hospital, and you've got help, and you love it. You're like, the doctors, the nurses are there, and you're like, man, this is pretty easy. I mean, they're taking care of us, and we've got a bed to stay in, we've got somebody to help and take care of our infant. And then in complete and utter negligence, they send us home. And we're like, what are you doing? We can't leave. We don't know what to do. So we call our parents, and thankfully my parents, Jenny's parents, we had aunts come over. And then after a while, they left. And we're like, what are we gonna do? We don't know what we're doing here. And so that is the way I'm sure you felt as well when it comes to parenting, is that, from the moment a child enters the world, parents work to meet the moment. There's no getting ahead. There's no margin. When you're helping a crying baby and you're taking care of them, you're not thinking about them being 3 years old or 13 or 23. You're in the moment. And that's the way it is as parents. And we're captive to the moment. We feel lucky to even be in the moment with them. And parenting really is a moment-to-moment, day-to-day endeavor. And we hear those terms all the time. Enjoy it. It goes by fast. They grow up so fast, The one I loved always, because, our house could just stay a wreck if it needed to be, is that you're not raising a home, you're raising kids. So I always loved that one. I don't know about you, but it feels like we're in survival mode. That's really the goal, not only for us as parents, but also for our kids. And I remember Jenny and I reading the book Baby Wise. Did anybody read that, or Growing Kids God's Way? There's different, get those books. That's about how you get them on a schedule, feed them a certain time, and keep them awake and let them sleep longer and all that kind of thing. So we did that. We even, as they were kids, had them learn sign language so they could communicate with one another. By the second one, we really didn't really care with that. But, we tried our best to do what we could do. And I remember just all those nights waking up to help feed and change diapers and all the things. And I remember taking the boys to get their shots for school. And we went into the office and they get underneath the table that I'm sitting on, crying and screaming, saying, "You're gonna kill us. You're trying to kill us. Help, help." And they're like, "You lied to us. You lied to us." I told them they were gonna get suckers afterwards, but I didn't tell them they were getting shots. So, then trying to help with school. Jenny wrote so many, well, I shouldn't say this, might be some teachers in here. She did not write any papers for them or help them with any schoolwork. They did it all on their own, okay? But no, there's all of that. And then there's this competitiveness with other parents, right? You feel it, just the politics that come with sports and school, and you look at your neighbor and how well their kids are doing, and there's this competitiveness that rises up in you. And so there's so many things to navigate. But then this happened. We were told that we were gonna be empty nesters until we talked to someone that was an empty nester. And we found out that the nest doesn't become empty as soon as they go off to college, that they come back. They come back to be fed and to be clothed and to be taken care of. And so the empty nest, we haven't quite gotten to that stage yet. We're almost there, but we're getting there. But an empty nester stage we thought was gonna be something that looked completely different. So it is moment to moment, day to day, and we try the most that we can with these moments. We hope to remember the great ones and to squash the bad ones, but these moments can take us captive. It's kind of like the movie Parent Trap. We feel like we're in a trap, and because each moment is so different, but also each child is so different. We talked a lot about, I wish we could put this element into this kid to combine the kids. It'd be LeBron James or Michael Jordan, or Tiger Woods. It's like if you combine all the strengths, and it's like every moment, every kid is unique. But what if the answer for the moment is looking beyond the moment? Well, thankfully, we've got some scriptures that we can look at to help us in this. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be honing in on the book of Proverbs. And so one of the wisest men in all of scripture, God asked him, what do you want? I'll give you anything you want. He could have had riches, fame, but instead he said, "I'll take wisdom," which I don't know if I would answer that. But he said, "I'll take wisdom." And so there's a verse in Proverbs that you probably have all heard before, and some of you parents have memorized, but I want to talk about it in a way that maybe is a little different than you've thought about it before. And it's the verse Proverbs 22:6, put it up here: "Train up a child in the way that he or she should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it." And so when we read this, it's easy to take it as a promise because it's reassuring. I don't know about you, but I have some anxiety at times. I need things to quiet my anxiety. And so this verse helps because whenever things aren't going right, whenever my kids aren't behaving right, this calms my anxiety. But if you parent the right way, this is kind of the mentality. If we parent the right way, our children will always follow what we taught them. If we look at this verse, it's as if your grown children create your parenting grade. It's either pass or fail. When they become adults, you decide what kind of parent you really were. But Solomon is not guaranteeing that as long as you train and parent your children in a godly way or in a godly home, that they will always believe and live as godly adults. And I used to think this verse was a promise. And I would tell parents that it's a promise. Don't worry if they stray, they're gonna come back. Okay, don't worry, that's what the scripture promises. But I've also sat down with parents whose kids passed away. And when they did, they were not following after Jesus. And they were not following the path that their parents laid out. And so what do I say to them when they ask, "Am I gonna see them again in heaven?" And my answer to them is, of course you will. Context in scripture is crucial. And in this series, I wanna point out something about Proverbs that we all need to keep in mind. And that is, Proverbs is a book of wise sayings written by a man named Solomon. But we shouldn't look at every wise saying as a promise. Some are in context, but the wisdom of Proverbs centers around general observations about how life typically works when we seek God's best for us. And so when we read Proverbs 22:6, I think it's important in this wisdom statement, the perspective that Solomon is trying to provide. And he's not making a promise about grown children. He's suggesting that all children end up grown, And the wise thing to do is to train them in the ways of Jesus, the ways to live life, that following Jesus makes our life better and makes us better at life. And so if we can see it through a different lens, it gives us a new focus, a new perspective. And so Solomon recognizes that while a child is small and requires age-appropriate parenting, that child is destined to one day grow up. And so this is a verse of wisdom. It's a principle of a path that we should take in our parenting. And so rather than parent a child as a child, Solomon suggests that parents see where the child is going, not where they currently are. To say it a different way, rather than see the child before you, perceive the adult who will one day leave you. Now, I know that can feel depressing, especially if your kids are young, but parenting with the end in mind means loving and leading and discipling them to become adults. It's not about today. It's not about tomorrow. It's not about this moment. It's about their maturity. And if you're an investor and you have a retirement account or a savings account, you invest in that so that it will grow to maturity, so that one day you'll be able to take withdrawals from it. It's not for today, it's not for tomorrow, but it's from a long time from now. And in the same way, that's why the way we want to parent. And this is really a game-changing idea when it comes to parenting, is what Solomon hopes we see is that our parenting moments today form the person that we want to become tomorrow. To get super practical for a minute, I know this is one that we all have dealt with if you're a parent, is that you've got that crying toddler in the grocery store and they want candy, they want whatever, and they're screaming. And, I've seen it. I go to Kroger a lot. Y'all might see me around Kroger and I see it's like, you just want everything to be quiet. You want all eyes to be off you. So you're trying to do all that you can just to settle them down, right? But what if we were to think about what we're going to do in that moment is to parent them to become an adult one day versus to solve what's happening in the moment. When our teenagers begin to date and have romantic relationships, it's easy just to deal with the moment. It's easy to deal with what's going on right now, but how can we parent and come alongside them to think about their relationships as they will be in adulthood? When a decision gets made, maybe we shouldn't decide for our kids, but maybe we come alongside them and to help guide them through decision-making process. And this is so difficult. In our small group right now, we're reading a book by Jim Burns that I highly recommend about raising your adult kids. And the subtitle is To Shut Your Mouth and Put the Welcome Mat Out. And with our sons who are 22 and 25, our role with them has changed. And that now we're not really a parent, but we're more of a cheerleader and a guide and a prayer because they don't always make the decisions that we want them to make. And so the key is for us to keep our relationship with them. Parenting with the end in mind allows us to focus our parenting perspective on what's to come, not what currently is. And I know that this can sound like a stretch, and it may be at times, but we're far from getting it right. I mean, Jenny and I, we're still in process of 25 years of trying this and talking and getting counsel and all the things. But when we continuously focus on the child before us, we focus on modifying behaviors. But what if instead we changed our perspective and we focus on the adult who leaves us, because then we focus on the heart? As I mentioned before, our sons are adults, and even though we try, we can't control their behavior. And this means keeping the relationship and trusting God that they will not depart from the training that we gave them, whether it be church or Christian school or whatever it might be. Lots of conversations and prayers and all the things. But we have to remember it's about the heart. And we also need to remember to not stop believing in our kids. So at this time, I'm going to ask Latrice Pace to come out. And would y'all please help me in welcoming Latrice? And this is her new EP, by the way, the song that you'll hear. So yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Do you all have one of those always there friends? My friend Leonard is that always there friend for me. Anytime I call, he answers. He'll listen without interrupting. Oh, I love that. Yet giving those subtle noises to let me know that he's listening. The okay, right, yes, That's Leonard. And afterwards, I would be waiting for Leonard to say, you know what? You're validated in how you're feeling. Yes, they were wrong. Yes, you were right. Yes, let's wallow and have this pity party. I knew I was right, and I was waiting for him to validate my rightness. Instead, and this was always frustrating, he would push back and ask me the hard question. He wouldn't allow me to stay there. He would say, okay, so what are you gonna do? I'm doing what I wanna do. I'm talking about it. I'm talking about them. And if you don't get your responses right, the next thing I'm gonna do is hang up this phone. That's what I'm gonna do. But I realized what my friend Leonard was doing is what King Solomon talks about, sharpening. I wanted him to say, I was right. I wanted him to say they were wrong. But in Proverbs 27, when we talk about sharpening, it says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Basically, King Solomon suggests that people in our lives have the potential to sharpen us. But more often than not, those people have to offer some resilience. You know, I think Solomon was on to something. Just think about it. In order for us to grow, we have to face some resistance. This is true in the weight room, and it's even true in our life. If we are perpetually surrounded by people who are just like us, we will never face the sharpening of friction. Other perspectives and viewpoints, they're not wrong. They're just different. So they force us to think differently. They force us out of the echo chambers of comfort. They force us to confront what we've always thought was right or assumed to be true. This kind of relational resistance can be painful. It can hurt our feelings, but resistance, that's the kind of iron we need in our life. However, and this is very important, we don't accidentally fall into sharpening relationships. We fall into easy. And I don't blame us because life is hard enough. So I would love for all of my relationships to be easy. I need easy. I need everyone always saying, yes. Yes, you're right. Yes, they were wrong. Yes, your way is the best way. Yes, you can use my credit card. Yes, it's limitless. That's the kind of relationships I want. We want easy and comfortable relationships. We prefer the opposite of iron. We want friends who will always agree with us and never push back. But these relationships don't always make us better because we won't be sharpened through the resistance. When it comes to these sharpening relationships, we have two options. We can embrace them and we can nurture them, or we can shun them all together. You know, without resistance, we can never gain resilience. I became frustrated with my friend when he would push back and ask the hard question, but I knew what he was doing was right for me. It was better. It was gonna cause me to grow because I do the same thing with my baby sister, Lydia. See, I don't mind applying the iron, but I don't want the iron applied to me, and that's a lot of us. So Lydia would often confide in me. Oh, and this is so frustrating, y'all. She would confide in me, and I'll hear her out, and when I would give my perspective, she would always say, whose side are you on? You're my sister. You never take my side. And I would have to let her know, it's not that your way is wrong or how you're seeing it is wrong, but I just want you to see a different perspective. And many times in doing that, she would say, wow, I didn't think about it like that. I didn't see it that way. Relational resistance is uncomfortable, it's painful, and it hurts our feelings. But if Solomon is right, when he said in Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. We need relational resistance to keep us sharp, to keep us seeing different perspectives, and to keep us accountable. Iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. I want to ask you two questions today. The first question is, who's sharpening you? For me, it's my friend Leonard. He didn't allow me to wallow. He didn't allow me to sit there and just talk about them, that, and whatever the situation was and how I was so discontented with life. But he forced me to get up, think up, and move past what I was feeling. The second question is, who are you sharpening? Once again, it's my baby sister Lydia. And not just her, I'm intentional with sharpening everyone I am in relationship because it takes intentionality to form these. They don't happen by accident. If my friend had given me the easy way out and never pushed back, I wouldn't have become the good problem solver I am today. So I don't call him all the time something happens. I sit and talk to myself. I talk to God. Then I ask myself, okay, what are you going to do? Let's make it a priority to seek out resistant relationships. Let's embrace them because without resistance, we can never become stronger. And without resistance, we can never regain resilience. Thank you all so much. I'm going to pass this baton to Jason.
This song, this just describe. You know what's interesting about these walk-up songs that we just did? So I don't know if you know this or not. I just know it from hearing parents. Like, so much work goes into these walk-up songs for these kids that play like baseball and stuff like that. They're like, oh my gosh, we don't have the walk-up songs ready. And it's like, I didn't have a walk-up song when I played baseball, but now it's like everything. If it's the wrong one, but you should just play a joke on the kids and put something funny. But I think we should all have walk-up songs when we're introduced to new people. It should just play over us. I think that would be great. But you know, what I love about what I get to do right now, speaking of baseball, as a closer can either have all of the pressure or a little bit of the pressure. But since both of them just did so well, I can literally be terrible and you'll forget everything that I said and they'll do great. So no pressure at all. So I'm excited to be here, and I'm so excited that Chris just got to really share his heart and his experience about being a parent and what that looks like for him, what that has looked like for him and continues to look like, and then what that might look like for you. And then Latrice, that sharpening each other in the context of relationship, of friendship is everything. Who you surround yourself with will literally dictate who you are. And then for us to look at, if someone is surrounding themselves with me, what kind of person are they? That's just incredibly important. And I'm going to talk about something, and this is an interesting one because I'm talking about this in the context of marriage. And you know, if you're not married, I also want you to be thinking about someone that's very close to you, just a very, very close relationship. And for me, I remember when I was younger, we would have all these sayings. You remember these sayings. Here's the first one: sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Makes complete sense, especially when you're young, like that doesn't hurt me. But then we have to go so morbid as to breaking our bones. With sticks and stones, that just seems a little aggressive, but here's another one. I'm rubber, you're glue. So whatever you say bounces off me and sticks to you. That was an Elmer's glue plug, so if you want to send some money my way, that'd be great. But no, we have all of these sayings, these phrases, and when we think about that one specifically, you know, eventually in life, stuff is going to stick to you, right? You found out a little bit later on in life that all of these phrases are exactly that. They're phrases. They're exactly that. They don't really hold up to the test of life, to the test of experience, because eventually in life, you find out that you are not rubber, you're far from it. You might try to think you are, that you're big and bad eventually, but you see your glue and everything just completely sticks to you. You have experiences, you have emotions, words, all of these different things in life that do stick to you. And the hard thing is all of these emotions, all of these experiences, all of these words that are spoken over you, when they stick to you, you just spend your life trying to pull these things off, and it's hard to do that. Now, when it comes to these different emotions, when it comes to these experiences or what people are saying to you, there are very positive ones, right? There are very positive ones that A lot of times they might stick to you a little bit, but a lot of times we find out that glue is not quite as strong. That just might be your regular old white Elmer's glue, but the super glue, the stuff that really sticks, it seems like it's all the negative things. You always remember the negative things. Think about this right now, even in the context of marriage. What do you always remember? That thing your spouse said 6 months ago. That's been really boiling in me for 6 months. Like I've been literally thinking about it. And you can't let it go. Meanwhile, in that 6 months, all of these kind things and these nice things that they've said or the experience you have, so many different things, but all of that stuff just falls away. That's the part that hits the rubber. That bounces off and you remember those negative things because those things stick with us. Fear, anxiety, how you feel about yourself personally. All of these things stick with you. And I remember for me, this is a little bit embarrassing, but I'm going to talk about it anyhow. So when I was younger, my parents got divorced very early on, and then my mom got remarried, and my stepdad had 3 kids of his own, right? He had 3 kids of his own, and one of those kids was about 9.5 years older than me. So he was my stepbrother. And I don't know if you know this or not, but when you're like 4, and then your stepbrother's basically 14, he likes to have a really good time with you. He has a lot of fun. Now I have a sister. She's actually here today. She's 10 years older than me. She's my biological sister, so she never did anything mean to me, but it was his stepbrother. And I remember he would always tell me that somebody lived behind us. It was our neighbor. His name was Whit Massey, actually was his name. And he had a pool, but he also had a dog. And my brother would always tell me how mean this dog was because the dog would bark all the time and run up and down the fence instead of him just saying, yeah, that's what dogs do. They just bark at people. They run. That's what they do. No, he would tell me how horrible this dog was. And I remember being like 4 and 5 years old, and I literally thought Cujo lived behind me. Like, why is there a dog that has killed as many people as this dog has killed and is still behind me? And so I was so terrified of this dog. I remember one time, my brother and everybody was swimming, and they were like, hey, Jason, come over and swim. And I'm like, no, because that dog right there. And my brother was like, I got him. So you just run in, jump in the pool, and you'll be fine. Right when I climb over on the top of the fence, he lets him go. You know, of course, yeah, it is all. Yeah, exactly. That stuck with me for a long time, but I just bolted to that pool because I was like, my life's over. I'm going to end. I'm not even going to get to start kindergarten. But I remember that stuck with me for so long. I was scared of dogs I was scared of my own dog. Our dog got very sick, and my dad was like, it's a little bit older. Her name was Honey. She was like the sweetest lab ever, but she would jump on the fence. And I'm like, see, you never know about these dogs. And my dad was like, yeah, I don't know. She's so old. Is it just kind of time to put her down? I'm like, yes, we should do that immediately. It would save the world a lot of time because I had this stuck with me. Even now, you know those people invite you to their house? We have a dog, they're fine. I'm like, I'll be the judge of that. I'll be the judge of how fine your dog is that you keep locked up in your house and you have to warn people when they come over, right? But that stuck with me. That stuck with me. And there are things that you can think about right now that stick with you. There are things that you have experienced, that people have said to you, so many different emotions that you had that have stuck with you. And those things have shaped you. You're still holding them now. You're still holding them to this day, and they shape how we respond to people, how we treat people. And sometimes it is so difficult to shed those in our life. And it's so difficult, especially when someone close to you says something or does something, or you have an experience with them and it sticks to you and it's hard to get rid of. And now we understand that these things do bind to us. And I want you to think about something that when things bind to us, they eventually get inside of us. And these things have the power to control us. So what binds to us, it eventually is inside of us, and then eventually it will control our lives. So those things that we're talking about that dictate how we treat people, those are these things that bind to us. And Solomon talks about these things. He talks about these things and what we should do, what we should actually bind to our lives, what we should actually hold on to, because he knew we could not walk through life without having things stick to us. And we read this in Proverbs 3, starting in verse 3, and this is what we hear from Solomon. He says, let love and faithfulness never leave you, ever. Don't ever let that leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and man. I want you to think about what he's saying, that these are the things that you never need to let leave you in your life, in the sense of they are around your neck, they are bound to you. You pull out your heart, you write these things on your heart. What are those things? Things that are founded and that rest upon the foundation of love and faithfulness. An experience that has a foundation of love and faithfulness. And what is love? Love is encouraging. It builds us up. It makes us better as a person. This is everything. Again, like Chris said earlier, the smartest man alive understood that we could not go through life without things sticking to us. And honestly, not just stuff sticking to us, but us holding on to stuff and making it stick to us binding it around our neck, us writing these things in our heart. And typically those things that we do that with are the negative things in our life. And Solomon says, you can't do that. You can't do that. It has to be love. And it has to be faithfulness. It needs to have that foundation. And when you do that, you're a better follower of Jesus. But guess what? You're a better person to be around. It's not just favor with God in the sight of God, but other people. Your friends, your coworkers, your spouse. Your spouse. When you let things that you have held on to the majority of your life, bitterness and anger and guilt and jealousy, it dictates how you treat those around you. I want you to think of somebody right now in your life who has done that, who holds these things so tight. Again, we have scars in our life, we have pain, and those are things that we do have to deal with. But when we push away all of the positive, we are defined by the negative. And those around us suffer the most. Not just those around us, but those closest to us suffer the most. Those you love the most feel it the most from you. So we have a choice. We have a choice to what we bind around our neck. Because like we said before, what binds to us eventually gets inside of us and has the power to control us. It not only has the power to control us, honestly, in my experience, in your experience, if you're honest with yourself, it will control us. It will control us. You see, whoever is on the other side of you experiences you, and you are defined by the experiences that you hold on to. So think about how they're experiencing you. Think about what you're holding on to. Because here's the thing. If you don't determine what sticks to you, what is bound around your neck, what is written on your heart, life will determine that for you. I think you know that. Life will determine that for you because hard things happen, life happens, and you have to keep moving forward. But what kind of you is going to keep moving forward? What kind of you is your wife or your husband going to experience? What kind of you are you going to be because what you have chosen to bind around your neck, to let get inside of you, and to let control you? What Solomon said, whatever is a foundation of love and faithfulness, let those experiences, let those words, let those emotions be bound to your heart. And then you can be the best spouse, you can be the best parent, what Chris talked about earlier, you can be the best friend, what Latrice talked about, that you can ever even imagine. Because you're doing exactly what God intended you to do, to learn from life, but to hold on to the things that help you grow. Faithfulness, love, those are the things that draw us closer to God. And those are the things that help those around us experience the best version of us, the version that God created, the version that he created. He created you in his image, and that image has a foundation of love and faithfulness, and everyone around us needs to experience that. So that's your choice today. My question to you is, what are you binding And what are you writing on your heart? What's controlling you? And how are others experience you because of what you're letting control you? Let's pray. God, we love you and we thank you for this incredible book of wisdom. God, we thank you that you've given us just amazing, amazing instruction when it comes to how we should live our life. And God, we're just so grateful. We're so grateful that you have put people in our lives to encourage us. God, and that you want us to be the best parents possible, to be the best friends possible, and to be the best spouse possible. God, and I just pray that as a church, we would be that group of people so our community and our world could experience us in a way that points them to you. Just like Chris said earlier, 500,000 people. 500,000 people that are close to our campuses don't even attend a church. What if they experienced us, and what if they experienced the love that you have given us, God? This world would be better. And I pray, God, that we would live a life. We would live a life that expressed that. We love you, and we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.